Greetings, captains, and welcome to this P3D video. You are looking at the single most expensive standalone add-on for P3D and FSX. It is the FSLabs A320. This aircraft has been around for a while for FSX, and it was recently released for P3D. In our review of this magnificent aircraft, we are going to be taking a look at the installation process, documentation, nav database update, exterior and interior modeling, as well as the aircraft systems. We will conclude our video today with a short test flight around Broome International Airport in Australia. Without further ado, captains, let us begin the review of this incredibly accurate Airbus for P3D and FSX. Let us take a look at the installation process of the FSLabs A320. The installation process is quite straightforward. However, loading the aircraft in P3D is not exactly the same. The FSLabs zip file that you will receive after your purchase contains 3 files: the A320 installation guide, as well as the FSLabs binaries and resources.exe files. The first thing you need to do is to run the resources.exe file, then run the binaries.exe file, and once that is complete, it will ask you to reboot your computer. Now, just a couple of very important notes. The installer will ask you to install the documentation for the A320, and you have to make sure that you do not install the documentation in the root folder of your P3D. So select any other location or let the installer select the default. The installer will automatically detect the location of your P3D simulator and install the aircraft files there. Another thing, after you run the binaries.exe, it will kind of ask you a couple of questions regarding what resolution would you like to install. And I think you can go with 2K, 4K, and 1K. And my recommendation is to go with the 2K resolution textures. This aircraft is very, very resource hungry, and you will definitely need to lower your settings in order to enjoy this aircraft. And it requires quite a bit of VAS as well. So go with the 2K textures unless you're really brave. Okay. And then it will ask you whether you want to install just the virtual cockpit with 2D panels, or if you want to install everything. My recommendation is to install only the virtual cockpit, as the 2D panels do require a lot of VAS, and you will probably very quickly run out of VAS if your settings are, a bit on the high end. So it is my recommendation to install virtual cockpit only and 2K textures. Okay, the installation guide itself is actually very easy to follow, and it contains information on installing the A320 as well as Spotlights installation. Spotlights is an add-on that will enable the internal lighting of the aircraft, and it comes free for the A320. However, if you want to use this Spotlights add-on for other aircraft, there is a registration fee of just under $20. I believe it's $19.95. And essentially what it does, it allows you to manipulate the angle of the lights, the coloring of the lights, and the intensity in other aircraft. So it's a good idea to install it, and we'll just cover that in just a few moments. The livery installation, there are quite a bit of nice liveries, and when you install these liveries, again, the installer will ask you what resolution would you like, and stick to the 2K resolution. It's still very high fidelity, and it looks absolutely amazing, and we'll take a look at that in the sim later on in the video. And last but not least, the nav data update. A little bit of information there, but there is an important step that we need to do, and I will show you how to do that along the course of the video. Uninstallation is very easy. Just uninstall the files, and this is actually a very nice piece of information. It's a good to know information that some files will actually remain after the uninstall. So you can manually go and uninstall these files, which keeps, your sim clean. Last but not least, if you want to install the FSLabs spotlights, again, when you click the installer, it will ask you where would you like to install the documentation. Again, just make sure that you do not select the root folder of your P3D, and the rest of the installation should be really straightforward. If you wish to change the resolution after you had installed the A320, all you need to do is run the binaries.exe file again and change the resolution, and the aircraft will be installed with the preferred resolution. A quick word for the P3D techies out there. Changing the resolution of the aircraft from 2K to 4K or vice versa actually will change the maximum texture load parameter in the P3D config file. And that will probably have an effect on other things as well. But it will definitely keep the VAS under control, as this aircraft consumes a lot of VAS. In conclusion, the installation process is a straightforward process. However, I would expect something a little more innovative in terms of the installation and configuration procedures. For example, the Spotlight plugin should be probably compiled with the A320 installer. And the other thing is that I would expect, for an add-on of this price, I would expect that there is some sort of an add-on manager to receive the updates for the aircraft directly. Also, for the liveries, I would expect that there would be an add-on manager for me to just download the aircraft. So these things are probably not very important. They're not very significant to the operations of the aircraft. They're nice to haves, I think, that personally I would expect when paying $140 for an add-on. The other thing for the setup, which is important for me to note, is that you cannot, if you want to load the aircraft in cold and dark state, what you need to do is first load the Piper Cub into an airport of your preference, and once the entire scene is loaded, then load the FSLabs A320, which is really counterintuitive. And you know what, for $140 add-on, that shouldn't have to happen. In terms of documentation, I think the aircraft comes with sufficient and quality documentation to operate the aircraft. I do recommend that you skim through the introduction guide before you begin your first flight, and definitely do the first tutorial. That's what I've done. And in here, there's some important information about setting up the aircraft, which is located here on page 4. And this has to do with how to load the aircraft in P3D. So the first thing is, as I've mentioned in the beginning of the video, is that you need to load the Piper Cub at a location of your choice, and you need to make sure that once the scene is loaded that you actually turn off the engines by hitting on Control Shift and F1. Once that is done, then you can load the FSLabs into the scene, and it will be in cold and dark state. The FSLabs A320 comes with its own navigational database. However, it is important and highly recommended that you update to the latest version. Navigraph already supports the FSLabs A320 dataset. In order to update the aircraft database, go to Add-on Mappings, click on Add, select the FSLabs A320 from the drop-down menu. It's right there. And make sure you select into user-defined folder. It needs to go into your root P3D folder and then FSLabs. Select folder, and then you're done. Another very important thing to note after downloading the latest data set for your navigational data is that you will end up with two files here. The previous file, which is AER16 something, which is an older cycle, and with a file that looks exactly like this one, but with a prefix NAV 1701001. Just make sure you delete the previous file and rename the nav file that was downloaded by Navigraph to AER. So you just need to change the first 3 letters from NAV to AER, and then you're good to go. The exterior modeling and texture work of this aircraft really reside in a class of its own. The amount of finesse and the quality and attention to detail is simply something that I have not ever seen in any aircraft built for a flight simulation platform. Texture work here on the wing and the highly detailed engines and incredibly detailed wheels, lights, and the overall finish of this aircraft is simply outstanding. And by the way, no matter where you zoom in on this aircraft's fuselage, you'll be able to read what's written there. Welcome to the flight deck. As you can see, the flight deck has been built with the same amount of finesse and attention to detail as the exterior, and everything has been built to look exactly like the real Airbus, from the central pedestal area here to the instruments here and the displays. And of course, we're going to start the aircraft and power it up in a minute to take a look at the various displays and the sounds as well. But just really the amount of detail that has gone into making this aircraft look like an Airbus is simply commendable. Here, let's look at the circuit breakers right there on the top, and right here, flight deck door, and as well, I believe we can move this this chair. Yeah, there you go. And now, as you move around the flight deck, you will find some parts that are not done quite as well as the rest of the aircraft. And one of these areas is right here. I simply don't know why this hasn't been done with the same amount of detail as the rest of the flight deck or the exterior model. So some areas of this aircraft are, not done with the same quality that you'd expect, having seen the exterior model, and for example here the central pedestal area, you'd expect to see something better in terms of the yoke and the I believe this is this for the parking brake. So in terms of the flight deck texture work and attention to detail, I think it is a very faithful representation of a real Airbus. Some parts are not done as well as others, but overall I think it's very representative of what a real Airbus looks like, and probably some parts were not done in high resolution, simply to keep the VAS usage at an acceptable level. All right, folks, what we're going to be doing next is we're going to power up the aircraft, and we're going to enter a short flight plan, and then we're going to go ahead and take off and begin following the flight plan before we conclude our video. It is time for us to power up the aircraft and look at the aircraft systems and features. This aircraft is equipped with thousands of animations and thousands of electrical system interactions, both within the aircraft systems and the flight sim. Now, one of my subscribers happens to be a real-world Airbus pilot, and he actually told me that this aircraft is the first serious attempt at representing what a real Airbus looks like and what real Airbus pilots actually go through in order to fly the real Airbus. So let us go ahead and begin, and the first thing we need to do is we need to power up the aircraft. Now, I read the manual, which I recommend that you guys read, and I didn't read all of it, but quite enough for us to do a good first impressions and review video. So let's go ahead and power up the FMC, And the way you do this, you need to press and hold the bright button until the display comes. And let's go to options, exit controls, and we'll go ahead and connect the GPU, the air starter, ground AC, ground chocks, and we will set the pins. GPU connect, and let's put the chocks and the pins. Okay, the external power is now available. Let's go ahead and battery 1. Just listen to that sound. Battery 2 and external power. Not sure if actually turned on. There we go. Man, those sounds are really nice. Alright. Crew supply can go on. And let's go ahead and turn on the fuel pumps. Sounds are very nice indeed. Okay, adheres. The light is extinguished. Okay. Let's see here. We can turn on the nav lights and seatbelt signs. Non-smoking signs. We'll arm the emergency brake as well. And now we are pretty much good to configure the aircraft. There are a few options that I do want to show you here. So the fuel, you can set the fuel here. And my recommendation is that if you don't know what you're doing in terms of distributing fuel over the tanks, just enter the total fuel here. And you can switch, I think, from kilos to pounds. But I've actually tried playing with these, so putting some more fuel here than here, and I started getting all kinds of, warning messages about fuel transfer and things like that. So I'm no expert, of course, but it looks like this is, the aircraft is very sensitive to this, fuel setup, and that's probably how the real aircraft is. So you can set the fuel here, and you just can type in, for example, 6,000 kilos of fuel, and just put it in here, and it will automatically distribute the fuel over the tanks. Okay, so the payload is right over here, and you can set. The nice thing about it tells you what is the maximum. So we've got 6 crew members on board the aircraft, and then the cabin. So from 0A, 0B, 0C, it tells you where you can enter the number of passengers in the various classes. So that's pretty good. And there's the gross weight here. This number is very important, and you will need to write this in order to enter it later in the performance data if you want to get a proper fuel prediction. Then, of course, you've got all kinds of things. Adheres, you can set it to realistic or fast. I like to keep things always in a kind of realistic state because it gives you an appreciation of what really happens in the real world. You've got the doors, so we can open the doors. Let's go ahead and open the doors. And now you can hear the sound has changed, because now you can hear the external sounds as well. So let's go ahead and open everything here. Okay, and let's take a look at the aircraft from the outside. So there you go. The doors are now open. The cargo doors are open. All the doors are open. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look here. Yeah, that's the cabin. So all the doors are open, and we can go ahead and close them again now. Right, let's go to return. What else do I want to show you here? All right, let's go to next. You can hear the doors closing. You can control the sounds, so if the sound is too loud, you can reduce it here. Controls, thrust levers and pedals. You can also change you can have the visual cues on or off, which is a good option if you're, just starting on the aircraft and, you need some visual cues to help you along the way. So it's got some really nice features that, you can use. Now this HTTP server is, let me show you what this actually is. Alright, so if you want to access the MCDU and the fuel load from your iPad, you can do so. And as soon as you install the FSLabs, you'll get these two shortcuts, okay? So if I click here, now this is the MCDU, as you can see, and I can access all the different options from my iPad, okay? And the same thing you can do for the refuel panel. Okay, so the same thing, all right? You can access the information here, and you can set things the way that you prefer. Okay, so this is the, as you can see, I have the latest nav database installed, which is 1701. And let's go ahead and take a look at the various pages here. Now, not all the pages have been implemented, but this is the Direct To program. This is pre-flight information, performance, initialization, data, flight plan, radio and nav, fuel prediction. This is not implemented. This one is not implemented. And of course, this is our menu. By the way, you can also simulate some failures. Okay, so you can you can say arm, and you can enter the condition at what speed and altitude and time delay to to activate a failure. And it will show you the active failures. So again, a little feature here that can help you increase the level of realism and challenge flying this aircraft. Okay, let's go ahead now and begin with the initialization. We are currently at Yankee Bravo Romeo Mike, and let's suppose that we're just flying to Yankee Alpha, Yankee Papa Alpha Delta. Okay, and flight number is 252. Cost index is 35, and we're going to be cruising at 35,000 feet. Put that there, and we'll say IRS initialization. Okay, now really you can do what you've learned to do in an Airbus as far as the MCDU is concerned. So let's go ahead first and do the flight plan. So this is our departure, and we're going to be departing runway 28. There's no sit. We'll enter that there, and arrival into our destination. We'll do ILS 23 through this particular star, enter, and we're done. And now we can clear the discontinuity. Oops. Clear, clear, and insert. So now we have a flight plan there. Let's see here, just make sure there are no discos. Oh, there is a disco there, so let's clear it. Okay, so now we are okay. Yeah, so no discos now, and the flight plan is now, we can take a look at the flight plan here. Okay, let me increase this range here a bit. Yep. So there's our arrival, and everything is set now. Okay, let's go to performance. or actually before we do that, we need to go to, by the way, if you click on this one here, so if on this page you'll see the speed and altitude at which you need to be at, and if you click one time it will show you the heading and wind and all that good information. Yeah. Alright, let's switch back here to Arc, and let's go to initialization, and here there's the fuel information. So that information we can enter here, select block fuel, and that's done. And now you have the initial fuel prediction, and now we can go to, now as you can see it has changed the the way we are going to depart based on the fuel prediction and the information that we've entered into the MCDU. Okay. What else here? That's fine. Alright, so let's go to performance now, and let's select our transition altitude is fine. So first thing we'll select V1 and V2, sorry, V rotate and V2, and we'll do flaps 1 for this departure today. Flex temperature, we'll say 59. Okay, and now everything is pretty much set for our departure. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn on the beacon. We'll put this on nav 2, and everything else here is okay. Alright, let's go ahead now and start the APU. And by the way, in real world situations, the pilots prefer to use external power if it's available, because it saves on fuel. So the most realistic way of powering the aircraft, if ground power is available, is to use external power and then power up the APU just before engine start to save on fuel, as fuel is getting pretty expensive. Okay, so let's go ahead and start the APU. APU master is on. And let's go ahead and start the APU. Okay, so let's go ahead now and remove the let's remove the GPU, air starter. Let's disconnect and remove the chocks and remove the pins. Alright, and now we can start the APU bleed. Okay, the APU bleed is now on, and now we're pretty much in a state where we can start our engines. Okay, beacon is on. Alright, so let's go ahead and start the engines. And before we do so, let's make sure the parking brake is set. Okay, parking brake is set, and mode selector. And now, to start the engines, you need to first use the right mouse button to lift it up, and then click the left mouse button to move it into the on position. So now the engine number 2 is going to start. As you heard, the engine sounds are extremely realistic, and it actually changes as you move the angle of the camera, and that's very good. That's very, very good. Okay, let's go ahead and start these. And oh, by the way, we left this MCDU off. Okay, so let's turn that one on as well. There we go. And let's go ahead and start engine number 1, since we have a good start on engine number 2. Engine number 1 is spooling now. Okay, let's turn on the weather system. And let's see here. This is on. That's fine. That's fine. Everything here is fine. And let's see here. While the second and the first engine number 1 is starting, you can put this on auto. And this one can go to TARA. Yep. By the way, there are various tests that you can do with this aircraft, like the APU fire test and the engine fire test, and there you go, right there. There are various tests that you can do, so that is simulated as well in this aircraft. Okay, it looks like we have a good start on engine number 1 as well, and now we can go ahead and turn off the APU. So we'll turn that off, and we'll kill the APU bleed as well. All right. All right, we are pretty much good to go now. I think I've done this in the wrong order, so we needed to turn this off and then turn off the APU master. So that was my bad. Okay, let's go ahead and turn on our taxi lights on. Taxi lights are on, and let's go ahead and set flaps for departure. So flaps 1, and as you hear these sounds, the sounds are really great. And let's arm the, oops, there we go, speed brake is armed. And we set the auto brake to maximum. No smoking belt, ground spoilers are armed, and parking brake is set. Engine 1 oil, low temperature. Really don't know what that is or why I'm getting that. Let's see here. Engine 1, oil, low temp. I really don't know what that is, guys, but we're gonna go ahead and taxi to the runway. This is the first time I get this, and I've done a few flights with this aircraft, and I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, let's go ahead and try to depart and see what happens. By the way, this could be some sort of a failure, so let's look at failures here. Active, anything? No, there isn't anything there. Okay, well, maybe one of the real-world Airbus pilots watching will tell us what that means and how to fix it. Okay, so flaps are set, the taxi lights are on, and let's go ahead and taxi to the runway. Parking brake released. And just a quick note, in order to properly move the aircraft, you need to press the comma sign, and that will allow you to use the rudder pedals to steer the aircraft on the ground. All right, folks, we are now at runway 28, and we are ready for departure. So let's go ahead and turn on our lights. Landing lights are on. And that's also, oops. There we go. And the nose lights are set for takeoff. Now, before we do depart, I do want to show you something. I do want to show you the night lights in the cockpit. So let's just make it a bit dark here. Alright, and let's go ahead and turn the... So that's what the aircraft looks like, at night. And we can turn this light on as well. Yeah. And the map light. Yep. And what else? There's the dome light, which we can also turn on. This is what the aircraft looks like at night. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, let me show you the aircraft lights from the outside as well. Alright folks, let's go ahead and take off. And everything looks okay as far as I'm concerned. Flaps 1, everything's okay, and that warning sign is now gone, so it could have been just an informative message. Okay, parking brake released. And let's do full power. So Toga, Manflex, SRS, and runway. And those rudder pedals are extremely sensitive. V1, rotate. Positive rate, you're up. Okay, and flaps are up. Let's go ahead and engage the autopilot. Alright folks, as you can see, we are now climbing to 35,000 feet, and the autopilot, auto throttle, everything is engaged. We can now disengage or disarm the speed brakes. Landing lights are on still. This brings us to the conclusion of our video today. Without a doubt, the FSLabs A320 is a high fidelity, high quality add-on for P3D and FSX. While the exterior model has been created with a lot of finesse and dexterity, the interior model, I believe, still needs some improvements. For a add-on that cost $140, I would expect a little more innovation in terms of the installation and configuration. Definitely loading the Piper Cup before you're able to load this aircraft in cold and dark state is unacceptable in my opinion. This aircraft is a lot of fun to fly. It's quite challenging, and the representation of aircraft systems is really unmatched. And this is really what P3D really excels in. It's not the flight model, but it's really the simulation of aircraft systems in general. This aircraft is an exception though, as the flight model and the representation of aircraft systems is really very close to the real aircraft, and this is by the account of real Airbus pilots. I hope that you've enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. Until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other. I will see you all very soon. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.